None of the typical advice for sparking creativity and getting unstuck and learning how to be prolific. I use that word lightly because let's be real. What I'm saying is none of the traditional advice has worked for me, and 2024 was evidence of that. What I have learned from a year of underdevelopment in my creative life, from a lack of progress in my creative life, is what we're about to get into in this video. So, if all of the typical grind, hustle, just make more, publish more, post more, do more advice hasn't helped, if the journaling and the wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a jog and do your pages, if all of that hasn't worked for you, stick around, because I have some things that I have learned that I think might help you. Now, before we get into all of the details that you are here for, let me just introduce myself. I am Carmen Kane, also known as Gingy, depending on how you feel. I write romance novels under Carmen Kane. That's me. And this is my YouTube channel. Here we talk about all things creativity, storytelling, spirituality, divine feminine energy, slowing down, minimalism. It's a real fun time. And so we're going to apply some of those concepts to creativity today. We're going to talk about what ways you can use these elements that I've been working on to make a more creative, more inspired, more fluid 2025 for yourself. If you're anything like me, you've tried all of these things in the past. You have watched the videos, you have read the books, you have studied, you've done all of the things, and you've given yourself a headache because you have pushed more and more and more, and the result has been worse and worse and worse. We don't want that. We are not calling that in 2025. What we are calling in is work that we're proud of, a process for making your art that feels good to you, so that when you sit down, you are not already belittling yourself and judging yourself and feeling behind and rushing through it and then creating something from resistance and anger instead of from inspiration and intuition. There are a couple of things that I want to talk about that have helped me get back into flow. You know what? Not even back into flow, because I don't think I've ever truly been in flow before. I started writing in school, in college. So for me, writing was attached to a grade. It was attached to assignments in the beginning. It was attached to workshops, attached to, am I doing this the right way? Will other people like it? All of those kinds of things. I will say these things have helped me get into flow for the first time. And before we get into those details, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory, because it will help you understand how I got to this point and why I really believe in the tips that I'm about to tell you, because they have been tested and they have been through some really rocky waters with me in terms of me wanting to quit all creative things. Backstory. 2024, I had a couple of things go really wrong. I started out 2024 with a dentist appointment that somehow threw off my gut, and then I had a lot of gut issues and a lot of cycle issues and just a lot of pain in my body and a lot of frustration around like how to fix that. A lot of experimenting around how to fix that. And so that took up a lot of my time and a lot of my energy in ways that I didn't like. And to be honest, I'm still kind of working through those things, and it has forced me to slow down a lot, and it has forced me to rethink how I approach work and how I approach everything, spending my time, just in general. And so that's how 2024 started. Now, I published my second full-length novel in June. And as soon as I did that, I kind of snapped back into this productivity, make it happen, you've got to market in a certain way, post this many times a day kind of zone. And it just really didn't feel right for me in my soul. Like there was just an energy that I felt that was leading me to resistance. I was like, oh gosh, like this isn't working. I don't like it. I'm hunting for trends and I'm hunting for sounds on TikTok and I'm trying to figure out a way to talk about this book that will get people to enjoy it as much as I enjoy it and as much as, my first readers enjoyed it. And it just felt so heavy and so exhausting and not really authentic, not really what I wanted to do, in all honesty. I'm long-winded. I like to talk about things in depth. I like to explore ideas, and a 10-second TikTok is just not doing it for me. I probably will be making more of those in the future, but only when I feel really called to, instead of trying to force that to happen, which is what I was doing. So from June to like August, I was putting out a lot of videos. I was, trying to hustle and grind and make things happen. And then I just hit a wall. I had an intention to get a novella out by Halloween. It was supposed to be a Halloween themed novella. I was really excited about it. I still really love the story, and I'll probably go back and finish it at some point. But I was trying to rush, and I was trying to create on this schedule, and I was trying to be like, okay, I've got to write every day, this many words. It has to look like this. I want the story to hit these points, and I want it to fit into this idea, and I just kept trying to force it, and it was not happening. And I didn't like what was on the page, and I couldn't make the book work. And so I didn't publish it. And then I hit another wall because I was disappointed so deeply that I didn't hit the goal that I set for myself. I decided, maybe it has nothing to do with the fact that I was forcing this to happen in a very short period of time. Maybe it has to do with the fact that I shouldn't be writing at all. And I've gone through these cycles in the past where every 6 months I'm like, am I really a writer? No one likes my stuff. X, Y, and Z happens in reviews. I'm like begging people to read. I can't get people to read it for free. I can't give it away on the side of the freeway. I can't. All of this negative mind chatter happens. And sometimes I buy into it, and there's like a cycle to it where it's like every 6 months I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe this is the wrong idea. So end of October, probably all of November, I stopped making YouTube videos. I stopped everything. I just kind of said, you know what? If I'm feeling this way about it, like I'm not going to force myself to rush through it. What I need to do is really examine what role creativity plays in my life. If I want to be a writer, if I want to write books again, if I'm willing to undertake this whole process only to be smacked in the face, only to feel like an idiot and feel like I'm screaming into the void, and to feel like nothing is ever going to come of this, and to feel really dismayed. I don't want to go through that again. I don't know that I want to put the time in. Is there something else that I could be doing with that time? Life is very short. We are all getting older. There's so many things I could do. I could be spending time with my family. I could be, thinking about ways to make more money. I could be doing all of this stuff. And here I am over here in fairy tale land, making things that only I care about, in hopes that eventually someone else will care about it. And I just got to this point where I was like, this is frivolous and this is stupid and this is irresponsible. All of that to say, I ended 2024 pretty sure that I was going to need to find an entirely new path for myself. And, I went through a lot of feelings about it, feeling frustrated about it, feeling hopeful about it, everything in between. And then I did a couple of things that I was not anticipating to be helpful in any sense. And it kind of changed the creative trajectory for me. So finally, I'm going to fill you in on what those were. So the first thing that I would say is tell yourself you're going to quit. Now, this is like the most backwards approach. I've never heard anyone say this. And it's a big world out there. It's possible that someone has said it. But I find that every time I get into those modes where, I'm questioning a lot of things and the 6-month cycle has met its next evolution, I tell myself I'm going to quit. And it's not ever, it's always genuine. It's not like, ooh, here's my strategy. Here's how I'm going to get myself back into creative zone. No, I'm literally like, I'm going to quit. I'm done writing. I'm done making anything. I don't even want to make a bowl of pottery anymore. I don't want, not that I haven't done that in the past, but it's been a while. I don't want to create anything. I just want to do the daily tasks and get through my life without having this desire to make something, to express something. I'm going to quit. And then I do that and I try to sit with that for a couple of days. And then inevitably, my husband will find me doing something, writing something, having an idea for a story, excited about something that I read that inspired me. It's the next natural evolution. And I think what's happening there is I'm finally letting go. I'm finally in surrender. I'm finally not gripping so tightly to the idea that what I'm working on has to be something, or that the next idea that I have has to be something. So I finally let that go and I say, I am going to stop attempting to be a good writer, a professional writer, a writer who makes money, some creative person who does a thing that people really like. I'm done. And then my creative brain comes in and says, you're done. Okay, yay, now we can play. Now we can do things and be real and access the parts of yourself that make you want to make things. And the parts of yourself that actually have something to say because you're not trying so hard to construct it from a conscious place. So that's step one. Step two, have a music playlist. I have quite a few playlists for a lot of things. I have them for different books that I've written. I have them for when I'm trying to get through chores and dishes and whatever. If you have them for different projects, that can help get you in the zone for that project. But if you're just trying to get back in the zone of being inspired, make a playlist of all the songs that give you the feels, right? That give you, oh, it's such a good story, or there's something about the melody that really speaks to you. So what is really powerful about music is that it is a sound vibration. And what happens when we are exposed to sound, even the tone of somebody's voice, right? Think of someone's voice that you really love. Hear their voice in your mind right now. And then think about how you feel in your body just after imagining that person's voice. It changes something in you, right? On a resonance happens that wasn't there before. And so the sound changes the vibrations that are happening in our body. And so if you can align with different sounds and songs that give you a feeling of creativity, whatever that feeling is for you, or whatever the project is that you're working on, not necessarily one that feels productive or that feels attached to a particular project. If that's too weighty, if that feels too stressful, just make a playlist that has to do with creativity, that makes you feel inspired, that can drop you into lyrics, or that can drop you into a bass line or something that gets you out of this mode of thinking. And a lot of times, I think for me, if I listen to older music that I know by heart, that I could just think about and hear every little bit of the song in my mind without having to play it, and I know the words, it's like a song that's on autopilot to my soul, that really helps, because then I'm really not thinking. I'm in another zone. I'm in almost like a memory, and it switches what's going on in my brain. I'm not, once again, not trying to construct. I'm just in the feeling. And so that has really helped me. I went from attempting to make a playlist for the novel that I was working on to just going back to like listening to all of the songs that I love. And then there's this evolution that happens. You go from listening to singing or listening to dancing or listening to, whatever. And then ideas start to come because you're in a space of play. So music that makes you feel like you're playing. Third step is create and then don't edit it and then release it. So it's kind of a three-parter for number 3. Make something however you want to make it, and then don't edit it, and then let somebody else see it. Stop with the rigidity, because getting yourself into the practice of rigidity, it's just gonna mess things up. So if you want to undo that, make something that you were not planning to make, and then show someone it, and then see what happens. And maybe it inspires something else, or maybe it's just part of like exercising that muscle. But it gets you into the zone of like releasing quickly. There is something about editing and trying to make something match the vision that you have for it in your mind, or match the vision that you have for how people will receive the thing, that shuts off your ability to make the thing in the first place. And so I think when you can create something and then share it without even touching it for a second time, or without thinking that you have to touch it for a second time, something low stakes, right? Part of this involves a bit of bravery or a safe space, safe people that you can share the work with. But if you have those things in place, it can be a really helpful place to kind of open up that creative engine again. The fourth and final thing, this is also another one of the more out of the box approaches to reigniting your creativity. I think there is a huge misconception about where making things comes from. It comes from within you. So much of the online space, especially, has become this place where people are promoting the idea that in order to make something, you have to make it for your audience. You have to make it with the expectation that there's someone else who's going to receive this thing, and that you have to please them. I've kind of been sucked into that world for a long time, and it has taken away the authenticity and the fluidity of the work that I want to do in the world. And so I think that the narrative that says you need to fill the gap in the market, or look at what's trending and then make that, or put out so many videos that you like get jaded on the idea of videos in the first place, or that if you're not constantly existing online in some capacity, that you're going to disappear and everyone's going to forget you. Like, I think that the way to fix your creativity is to like forget that all of that exists in the first place. And instead of focusing so much energy on the external, bring it back in. Bring it into yourself, where that original well of creativity begins and sustains in the first place. How do you go deeper into yourself? Well, depends on who you are. It involves a deep grappling with exploration. And it's kind of counterintuitive, because you think, I'm trying to get my creativity back. How can I possibly take time away from it? I'm already losing time on whatever project because I'm not feeling inspired. I'm not doing the work. That is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is getting back to a place where you feel like it's possible to do the work And then time can speed up. But before you get there, you have to go and find that part of yourself that wants to do the work in the first place, or the part of yourself that you've never met before in the first place. So if you are struggling to make something, if you're struggling to find your voice or to have that lens that gets you through the work, you gotta get back to uncovering the lens in the first place. Then the work is going to come a lot easier. What does that involve? Meditation. That is a word that I think is really thrown about easily online these days. A lot of people talk about meditation, and there are so many different ways to practice it. And it kind of takes time to figure out what approach works for you. And over time, that approach is going to evolve. So you might start out doing a basic like mindfulness meditation. Basic, I call it basic. That's not the right word to use for it, but a mindfulness meditation, or you might start out like doing the focus meditation where you like gaze at a candle for X amount of time. Or I don't know, maybe you like transcendental meditation, or whatever you get exposed to first is usually where you begin. And then, like I did, and like a lot of other people do, you kind of like drift off of meditation. You're like, I don't need to do that anymore. Whatever approach you start with, number one, keep it up. Keep it as a habit. I have been going a lot deeper into meditations, and I've been fitting it in different zones. So I will meditate in a bath. I will meditate before I sleep. I will meditate when I wake up, before I get out of bed. I usually don't do it throughout the day because things are so all over the place throughout the day. But it has just been helpful to be reminded that I'm connected to an infinite well of existence. And there's something that happens when you connect to that space, because then you realize on a deeper level that resonates as true. It's not just some like airy fairy thing that you can't connect to. Like when you meditate enough and you feel it, you really feel, you know that what you're making is not coming from you, like capital Y U. You're channeling it from somewhere else, and it is funneled through the lens of you, this identity that you create as a human on this planet. But it is not all your responsibility. And when you realize that making the thing is not all your responsibility, and you allow the flow to come through you instead of by you, the floodgates open. But you've got to be in the practice of connecting to that, I don't even know what to call it, energy, all-knowingness, something bigger than you, essence, universe, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever resonates with you, take that and leave the rest. But when you do that, you realize that this like creative thing is a dance. It's a dance with a partner. It's like a bachata. It's not it's not this solo enterprise. It's like all on you and whatever. And see, when we start thinking about things from like a commercial standpoint, a business standpoint, it gets really messy, because then you're thinking, how do I create a thing to achieve this end result in terms of money? And in terms of money, then I've got to like please people and like check off these boxes that they think that they want, and on and on and on. I'm accepting in 2025 that is not my job. My job is to be the vessel and create as much as I can. And whoever resonates with whatever I create, then that is the work for them. And that's as far as I can take it. The rest of it is completely out of my hands. And frankly, I don't want the rest of it to be in my hands. Even if I could control and manipulate and force my way into success, I don't want that job. My job is to be present when the information appears. So when information passes through, I just need to be open and willing to receive enough to be able to make the thing. If meditation is not your jam, there are some other things that you can do that I'll rattle off really quickly. Engage in things that bring you stillness. Spend a lot more time being quiet. This is a typical one that people like to say, but it works. Spend more time in nature. If you're a writer, it's really important. If you're any kind of creative, but especially a writer, it's really important to read outside of your genre, just to kind of reignite different turns of phrase and like different cadences, and do things that really help you go deeper into your mind, help you question your sense of reality, help you question what's normal. And that can, be reading books about spirituality, going deeper into tarot or astrology, or looking at different cultures and history. Anything that will help you have a deeper sense of self and ask different questions than you would normally ask, and open yourself up to a stillness, a confidence, a perspective that you might not have had otherwise. Those are the 4 things that I did that brought me back to a place of, of course I'm still a writer. Of course I'm still making videos. Of course this is my path. Why would I ever think that I need to leave it? And I think all of those tips really just boil down to giving yourself space to do it your way, and giving yourself space to experiment with what your way even looks like, and accepting that that's going to change over time and that that's fine. That's mandatory even for that approach to change over time. And then one thing that really just kind of blew my mind that I was reading last night is a post from Heather Havrilesky on her Substack. And I'm going to link it in the description. It's just a phenomenal post. It's called I Published a Novel and No One Cares. And I'm not even going to attempt to give you the rundown of that post. Just go read it. Go click the link and go read it, because number 1, her writing is phenomenal. But number 2, there are just these common themes that writers and creative people cycle through and feel and grapple with. And sometimes when you hear that other people feel these things and think about them, but they still have these careers and they still commit to the craft and they're still doing their work and their work is amazing, when you can see that and feel that, it shifts things for you, and it helps you put yourself in a category where you say, these are my people, this is the work that I do, this is how I feel, I'm going to have these ebbs and flows, it's okay, and I can let my creativity kind of rumble and grow and move, and it's fine that it doesn't look exactly the way that I want to. I don't have to abandon it, but I can be there for the changes that it's inevitably going to go through, and I don't have to let that impact how I see myself and how I show up for my work. So those are my non-traditional approaches to getting your creative flow back, and I hope they helped you. Thanks for watching, and I hope you go make something. I hope you have a really good time doing it. And if you feel blocked right now, I hope you do one of the steps. Starting with going to read the post. Go do that. Go click. Go scroll down. Tired of looking at my face anyway. Go scroll down and click that link. It's so good.